Hello, fabulous friends and fans. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah, and welcome to another frequently asked question video. I love your interactions, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, my website, nadiyashah.com, the YouTube comments as well, and all those other places I am out there online. Please do keep them coming. You guys have excellent questions. So Paula contacted me through my website and asked about being born on an eclipse. Is there any significance to being born on an eclipse? Well, there's significance to everything. Everything that was happening the moment you took your first breath is symbolic of your journey and is symbolic of some of the tools that you have been granted to do what it is that you most desire to do with this lifetime, to fulfill your potential and to fulfill really the reason of your incarnation, everything that you were created to do in its highest intention. And this understanding, this is how I like to look at the chart, as absolutely perfect, as exactly what it needs to be to move you towards greater love and greater wisdom. And this doesn't actually come from me. This comes from Ibn Arabi, who was hugely influential to my understanding of my practice as an astrologer. And also, really, I wrote my dissertation on him. So I try to give him a shout out because I think that, you know, he got me my MA. So thank you, Ibn Arabi. Where it comes to an eclipse. So essentially, an eclipse happens when we have a full moon or a new moon happening within 15 degrees of one of the nodes, either the south node or the north node. So if you were born at an eclipse, it means that you have got either the sun and moon very close together to one of your nodes, or you have got the sun on one node and the moon on another node, so quite close together to the nodes. Now, I actually did create a series of videos that had to do with being born on with different planets conjunct your nodes. So you are going to want to have a look at that if you know that you were born on an eclipse. But having said that, ultimately eclipses are about bringing you back into alignment with that higher intention of the soul. They are about you sort of having experiences, constantly being put into situations that remind you what it is that the soul desired to do with this lifetime. What did you promise yourself you'd do before you incarnated? Now, there's one thing to be said for consciousness, right? It's another thing for how well you embrace this, how you actually feel about this. And so if you are somebody who, and this is, you know, really, if you know your chart well, you're really coming to an understanding, you're a student of astrology, or you consider yourself an astrologer, although I think that to be an astrologer is to be a student of astrology for your entire lifetime. But I do think that if you are somebody who has sort of, let's say you have your sun and moon on one of the nodes, but it is speaking to other planets in ways that are not necessarily harmonious, it means that you are going to experience this alignment, okay, or this realignment, this constant universe trying to put you into alignment, not necessarily in ways that always feel easy or always feel harmonious, and yet you're motivated. You know that this is work that has to be done. You may not always be conscious of it. This is the nodes after all. However, your circumstances will make that clear. Now, if you are born at a new moon eclipse, also known as a solar eclipse, then it is the sun that becomes a very dominant energy. And if your eclipse happens when the sun is on the south node, it becomes a moment of, or rather it becomes a lifetime of, you understanding what you are evolving beyond. And so a lot of that life is going to be spent, first of all, you come into this life with an understanding of what it is that you're meant to do, who it is that you ultimately really are. And that sense of self is something that you actually bring into this life. Sometimes we can also see a very strong kind of alliance or support by a male paternal figure also in that life as well. However, the thing is that ultimately the South Node is about what you are letting go, what it is that you are sort of understanding is that you're meant to evolve beyond. And when we have someone born on an eclipse and the sun is on the South Node, it represents a life where, yeah, they know themselves, and that's great, but who they know themselves as is constantly going to be asked to be evolved beyond. It's not always the easiest process, but life will, and ultimately eclipses can be quite surprising as well. They're like a normal lunar event, but add a little bit of Uranus in there and add like 10 times the potency. So this is going to be somebody who has some really major turning points in their life, sort of these standout moments in life that say, okay, that's not who I am. I'm moving beyond that. Okay, I knew better about who I really am, and I've been behaving in ways that are not who I am, and that's not it, so I got to go in another direction. So that's a lot of the life spent in that way. If you are somebody born on an eclipse with the moon on the South Node, this is going to represent, so the moon on the South Node. And so to me, when I look at this, let's say it's a solar eclipse. And if you got the moon on the South Node as well, it means that the sun is nearby. So it's a new moon eclipse. The sun is nearby along with this. It suggests the same process you're going to be going through. However, there's an added element to this that has to do with your intuition really being kicked up on this, your feelings really guiding the way. And a lot of times, a lot of the changes that come about might just be about your feelings changing. All of a sudden you want something different. All of a sudden you realize that you need something different. And so it's going to be marked a life of major turning points, largely guided by a feeling within that you're ready to evolve beyond a certain level or a certain step or a certain understanding of who you knew yourself to be. But more than that, it does represent a lifetime where understanding what it means to care for yourself and for others is a huge learning point, and where it is that you end and another begins, huge learning point. And as part of this, you'll have many new beginnings over the course of your life as you come to understand healthier and healthier ways of caring for people, and where it is that maybe you're allowing your energy to be depleted. So big life lessons there, and the sort of the light bulb moments, if you will, come on quite surprisingly. If you are born during a lunar event, okay, so a lunar eclipse, and this is a full moon eclipse, and you've got the sun on the South Node and the moon on the North Node, this is going to suggest a lifetime of, or several moments in this lifetime rather, that are going to ask you to change, really. Wherever the moon is, that's an area of life that's constantly changing. The moon being on the North Node says that what life and what you understand that you need to evolve, to grow, to move towards greater love and greater wisdom, to fulfill some deep soul drive within you, your intuition and your emotions are going to lead the way, but what the answer is constantly changing and constantly shifting as well. And while there may be a drive towards security, ultimately one of the higher lessons also is to find security within as you navigate your emotions to lead you towards the changes that are being asked of you, that are being asked of your circumstance as well. And there's also an understanding here, again, in sometimes surprising moments where you realize what you really need to be cared for, what you really need to be fulfilled. And what I have found with this type of placement is, for example, you might be with somebody and they're amazing for a certain period of time, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh wow, that person does this, and that's really not what I'm about anymore. That person shows me they care for me in this way, and at one time that was awesome, but now it's just not working for me anymore. So these are the types of realizations that happen at several points over the course of the life. Those people born with an eclipse, a new moon solar eclipse on the North Node. Now, this is very promising, I do think. And the reason is because this is just all about beginnings, constant new beginnings that are moving you towards the new, the next, that are opening up karmic blessings to you, that are introducing you to new opportunities as well. And, you know, I'm very much of the belief, I say this in my videos, that I really believe we are older souls than ever. And what lessons at one time took us like 100 lifetimes to learn, now we can get it in a few years. And so we're packing in like several lifetimes worth of lessons in one life. And I think this is why, because everything in the external world is a reflection of what's happening with us on levels of spirit, on levels of soul, collectively and individually as well. I think that's why in a lot of the world, it's now very uncommon for somebody to have just one career, or to just have one career one way with one organization. What we see now is people go through several career changes, career rebirths, or they're doing the same thing, but they're doing it differently. They have different phases, whereas in one phase, I'm thinking about some astrologers out there that have amazing careers, and they'll go through these phases where one phase they'll be traveling a lot and teaching a lot. In other phases, they'll be writing a lot and publishing a lot of books. And so in this way, we're sort of tapping into these different lifetimes in the same lifetime. And I think that's also why it's not uncommon now, especially depending on where you are on the planet, to have several major relationships over the course of your lifetime. Whereas at one time, really, it was written. It was so written for you. Like, you know, you got married when you were a teen and there was nobody else in that lifetime. And even then, you weren't learning everything that you needed to get from this person. There's strong, these karmic contracts that are repeated again and again. When we have the sun and the moon, if you're born during an eclipse with the sun and the moon on the north node, this is a lifetime of change, yes, but this is a lifetime really where you're packing in a lot of lifetimes in one. But what I really like about this is ultimately there is some inner knowing, some inner clarity that if you trust yourself, if you know yourself, and if you trust your instincts, that you will be moving in the right direction. You are moving towards greater love and greater wisdom. So even if your life seems a little bit uncertain to other people, even if it seems like all of a sudden you want something different, all of a sudden you're beginning again, all of a sudden you're happier than you knew you could be before, all of a sudden you're more fulfilled than you knew you could be before, and this is surprising the people around you, on some level of soul, there's something steady, there's something comfortable in the change, there's something that knows it's moving in the right direction. And if you are born, I think there's one more left. If you are born with the sun on the north node and the moon on the south node, so this is a lunar eclipse again, but you are born with these, with the moon on the south node, the sun on the north node. This is about this whole idea of learning healthy ways to care for yourself and others becomes especially emphasized. The role of a significant maternal figure in early life becomes that much more emphasized. Like, it's not uncommon for these people to feel a very strong connection to at least one main maternal figure, one female figure early on in life, and to be very powerfully shaped in ways that are like quite apparent, if you will. And when we have the moon on the south node, this does represent this whole idea of, okay, where are your feelings kind of leading you in a genuine direction of your instincts being right and your intuition going the right way, and where is it that instead what's happening is your fears are guiding you and your emotions are sort of skewing your perception. So that becomes an important part of learning as well. And with that configuration playing out, but the sun on the north node, it really is the rational mind, and it really is self-knowledge that moves you in that direction of greater love and greater wisdom, that moves you in that direction of your personal growth, your personal evolution, and opening up karmic blessings as well. Self-knowledge and a sense of not necessarily just detachment, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but rather a sense of being so strongly connected to the self that you know that you are worthy of not only shining your light, not necessarily for anybody else, but just for yourself, that you're worthy of listening to yourself too, that you have a level of knowledge of who you are and what you're here to do. And as long as you stay true to that and you know who you are, you're moving in the right direction. So this idea of self-knowledge and evolution and evolving your life becomes that much more important as well. And this is not taking signs into consideration either, so that becomes a whole other thing. And again, I would invite you to look at the North Node videos that I've already published, I've already put out there, that talk about having your nodes in the different signs as well, which will give you further insight into just the nature of the changes, the nature of healthy caring for yourself, the nature of healthy evolution for yourself as well, and how it is that you can tap into the energy of the sign to move your life in a direction that you like very much. But ultimately, eclipses are about clarity, light bulbs, changes, where it's about South Node being emphasized. It becomes about what's ending, moving away from. What are you moving away from? Where the North Node is emphasized, it becomes about what are you moving towards, what's new, what's next, and who it is that's coming in to pull you in that direction as well. Well, thank you so much for your questions. Please do keep them coming. As I said, I love interacting with you guys, love your questions as well. And thank you so much for being here. Until we connect again, take care.